Hello there and welcome. My name is Martin Close, and this is the Classical Art Academy online art school. Evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's stream. So tonight we're going to be painting some blue glass study. So that's what we're going to be doing this evening. As in all beginnings of any painting, tonight is going to be no different. It's all going to be initially about getting correct proportion, and we'll go through that in stages. So there's going to be no rush to go to the painting stage. If we rush too fast to go to the painting stage without getting proportion first, then it doesn't matter how good your colours are, it's still not going to be as good a painting as it could be. So let's see what we're going to be doing, which is this little blue study. It's on a white background, and we've got some nice shadows to the left and the right and behind. And you can see there is some illumination coming through the blue glass. So we've got, it's going to be an interesting little thing to do. So let's start by introducing the colours on the palette. We've got titanium white, there's ultramarine blue, raw umber, and ivory black. Now, if we get to this stage, the white and the blacks mix our greys, we're way ahead of the game. But initially, I'm going to be focusing on just marking off on the proportion with the French ultramarine blue, and if I need to, a little bit of the raw umber just to give it a darker value. Slurp of tea. So I'm using solvent. That's not a solvent. Let's just get the solvent. I think we'll put the lid on that one. So, scene one, take two. We're going to be using a solvent, which is, in this particular case, I'm using Zest-It, which is not quite an odorless solvent, but it's very safe. And it's not an unattractive odor. It's slightly lemony, I think. But here we go. So you can see, although we have a dollop of French ultramarine out, I'm diluting it down quite a bit. Can you see this? In actual fact, it's almost like a watercolour. Now, if I was to add a little bit of the raw umber to this mix, it's going to go darker. Can you see that on the palette? Now, depending on how much raw umber we use, depends on whether it goes into the brown spectrum. We don't want that. So if anything, we just need to go a little bit darker. And you can see there the difference in the two blues. So let's see where we are. I'm going to come in with just French ultramarine first. See how we begin with this. My first, my very first mark is going to be where the top is, where the absolute top of this bottle is here. Now, let's see. Let's have a quick look at where we are. So I'm going to pop a mark in and then I'm going to check it. Let's make that a little bit more known. And I'm going to use the brush handle, in actual fact. I could use, actually I will, I'll use the knitting needle to check that. I'm just literally guiding up. If anything, I'd say that's very slightly too high. So I think it's about here. Let's just go to a little bit of this darker blue, and you can see the effect that that'll have. There we go. Now, of course, if we don't want a mark to remain, we use a brush. In this particular case, it's a soft brush, a little bit of solvent, and I can just remove that first mark. Now, if of course we use too much solvent, it's going to run down the canvas, and that's not really what we want to happen. So I'm going to have a look at that and see if I agree. So here we go. Yep, okay, I'm reasonable with that. If it's a little bit out, I'll forgive myself on that one. And I'm now going to go to the bottom mark. Again, check it. I think I can afford to go very slightly lower. So again, we'll remove that first mark. Now, when I teach in the studio, lots and lots of students struggle with this concept of just getting the top and bottom in first. Frequently, I'll come back after 15 minutes or half an hour or whatever to a student's painting, and I'll see the complete image already painted out on the canvas in rough form or outline. But it's too far to the left, or it's too high, or it's too low or too right. If you just condition yourself to just paint the top and bottom line in first, that's the size of your image. You have a choice. It's your choice to make. You can make it smaller or larger. But once you got the height in, or the size in, then obviously you then have the width, which gives you proportion. If your width is too small, it's going to be out of proportion. If your width is too wide, it's going to be out of proportion against your height. So if your height is here and your width is there, and it's correct and true, then great. So you've got top mark, bottom mark, left and right. 4 marks, that's it. Stop. And then look at the canvas and decide whether it's too far to the left, too far to the right, too up or too down. You're literally wasting your time and effort and energy if you progress past that point without first establishing if your image is correctly placed on the canvas. Okay? So we'll continue with this. Let's put that brush down. And let me just check this bottom mark again, just make sure I'm happy with it. I'm using a knitting needle for this. Yep, okay. Right, so I'm now happy that we've got the top and bottom. Now with that, I'm going to stand and extend one arm, and I'm going to use the Rodney, or rather the rod or the knitting needle, and I'm going to use this to gauge the height of the main bottle, the tallest point. So if that's correct, that's my size there. Let's get this correct. Yep. Okay, now I want to establish the width against that. Okay, let's just stand a bit further back and see if we can get a more accurate. Okay. So I'm going to kind of go with an image in the center, I think, on this one. And with that said, let's put that in here. I'm going to kind of guess for a minute, just see if I feel right if I put that in as the right-hand side. Let's see. So let's come back and have another peep. So I'm getting the width now. Moving on to my mark and seeing where the end is. I'm going to make a mark where I believe that is. I think that's too far to the left, but any mark is better than no mark. Again, many students struggle with the concept of they're fearful of putting the mark in the wrong place. Don't be. Any mark will do, even if it's in the wrong place. If this mark is wrong, which it is, it gives me an indicator as to how far left or right I need to make the true mark. It's a starting point. Now, I feel, having put these two marks in, that the right can come further in which case I'm going to get this lift-off brush to remove the initial mark. Again, get the width. Okay. Just want to focus on this for a second. So I kind of feel this needs to come in about here. Again, let's just check that. So height first. Against the width. Try really hard not to move around when you're doing this. I think I might need to come in slightly more. Let's just see this. All right, let's go. These first few marks are really key. Right, so I'm going to keep my foot on the mark, bring that in slightly more. Right now, these 4 marks are singularly the most important marks on the entire canvas. Nothing else. Of course, if you do have slightly shaky hands, then this can be a challenge, but you'll compensate for it. You get used to it. Will come. The most important thing is don't get cross and angry. Okay. I think that's just slightly in. So now we have our top, bottom, and left and right marks. Now I would stand back and go, okay, am I happy with that? I think I reasonably am, because I don't need to be perfectly centered. And it looks like it's slightly more space at the top than there is at the bottom, which I think is fine. So I'm going to run with that. So a slurp of tea. Okay, so now the next thing I need to do is to decide where the center of this bottle is and where the center of that bottom line is, because I need some kind of guide as to where to come off from. So let's just see that. Check it from there first. Okay. Interesting, there's a little reflective line coming down that bottle, so we can gauge in from the come back and check. I think the drawing out stage is actually the more, it's certainly obviously a challenge, but it's really rewarding when you get it right. Very slightly in. Again, remove the mark, which we don't want to be there. So if we say that is true, I can just put a guide down here, he says. Straighten that up a little bit. Right. Oops, so I touched the, I think I brushed the camera lens in, didn't I? Brush the camera. Okay, now with that in mind, I can move this mark over. And we can bring this, just put a mark on there as the center of that, well, not center, but the reflection on that bottle is slightly offset to the left, I believe. Okay, so let's continue. It's, of course, means the top of that bottle is also here. So we use the top of the canvas to give us a straight edge. There we go. And it's going to put a slight mark up there, so where it is. So now we need to, ideally speaking, we need a good point. We need to establish where this is, and ideally speaking, where that is as well. So in other words, where this point is and where that is. And if we can get those two places in the correct position, then it's a good start. I suppose the also the easy level here is to just get that in as well. Let's just have a quick look at this a second. Just realize my head is above said camera. It's okay there. It's all right there. All right. So we're going to go for the horizontal, I think. Let's just see where that is. I'm going to make a small mark on the canvas. That's probably too high. Actually, no. Let's go slightly higher. I just brushed the camera again, didn't I? Yeah, I think I'm reasonably happy with that. So with that in mind, I'm going to brush this line across. I'm using the top of the canvas as a guide. Bringing that across. I think I need a better guide. Whatever you do, always question it. We think we get things right, but sometimes we go back to a painting or a drawing a few hours later, and we realise that we must have had our eyes closed at some key point. Okay. I'm reasonably happy with that. Now, of course, this line here virtually comes straight up. I say virtually because I never like to assume anything when I'm painting. Give it the benefit of the doubt. Should be straight up. Now, let's also put the other construct in. Let's put this line in between the two bottles. See if we can get that positioned. Let's hold our breath whilst we do this. So make sure we've got the correct point. Just trying to make sure I stand in the right place. So I'm using the height as a reference. Voice is playing up today. When you're measuring like this, it's very important to make sure your position is correct every time. Otherwise, you're going to be getting it wrong. If you're using angle, it's not so important. Wrong brush. Let's make a mark. Oh, sorry about my voice today. So that was a test mark. Like I said, if it's in the wrong place, great, no problem. Because from this, I can tell immediately how far left or right I will need to make it. Whereas no mark at all like this, there's too much space. So if I try and get it right, I'm probably going to get it wrong. Whereas this is really going to help me. So even if you make a mark and it's wrong, don't worry. It's all good.
We've got some nice feedback, darling.
Oh, lovely.
So, nice feedback about the composition and the study. David Boardman is really looking forward to seeing the development of the reflections.
Yeah.
And Tony Jackson is also also really interested to see the progression of a study with such bright chroma and how that will get replicated. So he's really looking forward to that.
I'm really looking forward to that as well. It's.
So what?
I think that Rachel's just mentioned that a couple of Davids, David Boardman and David and Tony, and also David Booth. So welcome, guys, to the show. Yeah, this is Rachel's idea. Can't own it. It's Rachel's. Her input on the glass was key. I kind of fancied to do. I almost did a loaf of bread instead, but so the glass bottles won. But yeah, the chroma, the saturation of the glass, it lends itself to being layered, glazed, and it's going to be interesting how we can achieve that in 2 2-hour sessions. But we'll have a go. Maybe we can do the 2 streams and then develop it in a secondary video. But no, it's you're totally correct. It is a nice composition. I like the grey background, and it's very grating greys, and warm and cool as well. Because the background, if you notice, especially to the left, is a warm background. It's almost beige, whereas obviously the blue is cool. So I'll hope to do it justice.
A little shout out to Adam Stockton.
Adam Stockton. Oh, hello, Ed. Hi.
First time he's joined us on the chat.
Oh, well done. If you have any ideas or questions, please feel free. Just type them in. Rachel is here, and we can communicate and we can answer those questions live, which is much better than doing it the other way, right? So let's crack on. Let's see where we are. I want to get this bottle correct. So again, I'm lining up with the height I've got. Let's just get this. I'm looking forward to doing a loose study. I did think of just doing a cloud out of my imagination. We've been very tight with studies so far. The last 3 studies have all been still life. Of course, if you're a little bit wrong, there's no such thing as being a little bit wrong. You're wrong. It's interesting. Okay, well, it says it's got to go slightly wider, which I'm surprised about, but I'll put that in. So I'm going to come straight down, trust in the brush, as they say. I mean, in truth, it's going to be adjusted anyway, but it's always nice to get it right-ish as opposed to wrong-ish. Now here, yeah, something screams out about that with me, but maybe it's just an illusion. Let's see. So let's get the width height again. Don't want to get too close to the camera. No, it seems to be true. I think it's, I'm going to bring it over slightly on the right. I think that's my ouch moment. Okay, so ignoring that I kind of feel something's not quite right, I'm just going to go with flow, put in a bit of, so a quick look. Yep, ever so slight. Now, when I teach, I always say to students, don't do this, so don't do this. Go for big lines first, big shapes. I kind of feel you guys who come to the school on a regular basis are probably smiling at this one. See, the preacher needs to hear what the preacher says more than the congregation many occasions. And I'm the same. We're all full of bad habits. But there's a voice in my head saying, don't do that. Bit late, I've already done it. Rumour has it, the world is opening up again. How exciting is that? So, bit of dip again. And I want to bring these two lines up, but I kind of want to do it so that they're straight. That's going to be interesting. So, not quite knowing where up is sometimes. Let's bring this down. Let's bring that down. Okay. Now, let's see. I kind of feel I want to put the base of this in, so I'm going to guess. That's a bit wrong, isn't it? Guessing. Is that allowed? So I made a mark. Now, having made the mark, it's a bit like I said, again, if you want a particular colour, better to have any colour, i.e. the wrong colour, than no colour. So I've made a mark. Better to have a mark than no mark. So now I'm going to see I'll get down to the same as the camera lens level, he says. And I'm going to see where the bottom of that is. So I'm looking for the bottom of the jar. Oh yes, probably slightly too high, maybe, but maybe not. So I'm going to put it in. I can easily adjust it. I'd like to see what it looks like with it in. So I'm using the, you probably can't quite see this. I'm using the easel now as a guide and running the brush along the bottom of the easel. Or where the canvas sits. Yeah, is that about right? About right is about right. Is that okay? So we got the lid top-ish, have we? Maybe. And we've got the base. Yeah, okay. Now let's go for the bottom of the lid. Again, let's see where that is. I'm crouching down because I'm taller than the lens. And as I've got this camera in the way of the still life, I can't actually see what is going on. So let's have a quick look at that. Is that right or is it wrong? Looks wrong. Oh, good, it is wrong. Oh, is it? I don't know. Yeah, it's a little bit wrong. Not a lot wrong. When you do a portrait, if it's a millimetre you're out, you'll see it. So I think we might need to adjust this one in a mo. That's going uphill. One of those lines is right. So let's have a quick look. Something about starting a new study. It's kind of new. I must say, I did enjoy the lemons. Right, let's see where this is. I'm just going to look at the bottom of the glass. So we've got the lid-ish, maybe. I want to put this bit in, so let's see where that is. Obviously, it's a little bit below it, so let's stick it in. That's, I think, too far below it. We'll see. I'll stick it in. If it needs to raise up, it raises up. Okay. Yeah, I think a nice relaxing cloud study would be really nice right now. Let's have a quick look. Okay. I'm going to adjust this. Oops. Must not breathe when I'm making a line. Okay, so again, going to do something which I normally say don't do, which is what I just done there. So, and I think this line can afford to go up because you can't talk and you're doing a straight line. Actually, I can't do a straight line even when I don't talk. Okay. Progress. Ish. Let's just get a little bit of dark. Oops. So there's something on the brush. Still is there. Just want to put a sharper edge in there. Preferably at the right angle. And preferably in the right place. Right. Okay, so it's a bit like it is an abstract currently, because obviously this isn't flat, it kind of goes up. And or does it go down? Let's have a quick look. Probably a combo. I think it's going to go down slightly. Just mindful this just might be pride putting this in. Wouldn't normally worry about it till a bit later. So the lifty off brush hasn't got any solvent in it at all. It's just got no paint on it. If anything, it's solventy-esque. Not quite sure if that's a word. Essence of solvent on it, that's it. Almost completely dry. Okay. Right, let's see where else we are. So we got the top of the bottle coming up to around about this point. Okay. And then it bulges across. Bulges? Turns. or one of those. We've got this neck coming up. I'm going to put the neck in. I'm going to kind of guesstimate where the neck is. Oh, devil. Which means if I'm wrong, which means probably, but I'll have to correct it in a minute. Well, at least I know I've got something to gauge by. And I'm going to just put an angle in on that. I get the brush and I can see instantly that needs to push slightly out. I feel. Well, it's a definite maybe. Now, all of this will be altered many times until it gets itself just right. But for the time being, I just wanted to see if we can let's see what it looks like to put a bit of that in. Trying to introduce a bit of a curve there. Okay. Little by little. Okay. Now let's just see, put some constructs in a second. So with that in mind, I think there's an edge coming across here, just above, which of course gives us eventually the position of that other bottle. So let's just pop that in here a moment. I just still want to get this edge so I'm a bit happier with it. Yeah, maybe good to go. See what it's like. Let's see about that neck of the bottle, see if that's in a good place or not. Let's get the height again. Let's just work this through. Checking it first. Should have really made a mark on the floor as to where I'm standing. I'm trying to recalibrate every time I move. It's difficult to explain everything when you're on video. Of how to draw. It's something which I'm thinking about making just a separate video of different techniques so that we get an idea. Where's this going? Okay. I'm going to stick a mark in and then I'll change it. Yeah, I think we'll definitely change that one. Let's see what it looks like. Again, calibrate. Go to the end. Hope you can all hear me clearly. I'm very mindful sometimes. My voice goes to nothing when I try to have to focus on something. Okay. Well, quite sure why that doesn't look like it should do, but we'll pop it in anyway. And that's again keeping it really simple. Get the angle rough, straight line. Oh, that's not a good angle. There we go. Better to stick something in than nothing, but that was shockingly bad. And that doesn't look the part either, but never mind, we'll pop this in. Straight edge, curve, always far better to. I'm going to need to look at this and analyse why it looks a little bit wonky in a second. Let's just see where we can go with it first, and then I might have to bring a line in. Yeah, defo. I think maybe the edge. Let's have a quick check on some of the ABCs. So calibrate the height. Look at the extremity. Okay, yeah. So definitely needs to come in slightly. I'm pleased it was that way, not the other. Now, just pop this in. I'm going to just touch the brush into the solvent. And when I say solvent, you can use obviously terps. If it's a confined place that you're painting in, i.e., a room or something in the house, then make sure your windows are open. A bit easier now than it was a few months back. Whatever you do, don't paint in a confined space using solvents. Well, that looks a little bit better. Let's just pop this down. Yeah, it's still, the other side needs a bit of attention, but I think we'll, actually that side just needs to come down slightly, so, which will help the overall aesthetics. No idea what the time is. What time is it, Rach? Are we okay? Let's have a quick look. Oh, yes. Excellent. Yeah, it looks better, doesn't it? I just look at the computer screen for a minute and tells me a bit more info, so good, eh? Right. Let's bring this down. Again, I'm guessing where the top is. Can check that, alter it easy enough. And popping in where the bottom of that is. So let's just get that height of that. Use the rod or the knitting needle. Okay, pop that in, see what it looks like. Oh, it's got to come lower. methinks. Again, probably not much, but just a little bit. Just push that down. And I think also the glass neck needs to be slightly thinner, so we'll put a bit of blue in and we'll push into it from the side. Left. No, it's the right, isn't it? The other left. And this end. You can see what a millimetre does. It's quite astonishing. And that's got to just come a little bit further out again. Okay, so we are chasing something here. Let's just look at that. Bit of blue going in. Maybe. Bit of blue on the can there, brush. And with the brush, just push into that. See if that's any better. It's amazing how you can fiddle with something for ages and it's the tiniest, tiniest thing. I want to come back to that in the inner mode. Let's just put another, and that just looks a tad, yeah. It's going to make this ever so slightly wider. When you are drawing something out, do be really mindful. Don't put a big thick mark in. Try and be as precise as you can. Thin marks means you know where the edge is. I'm just going to put a mark in there. Tell you what I'm going to do in a second. Become obvious. Just then put a bit of edge on that. Again, I just want to put this in to give me a feel. Is it in the right place? Is it too high up? Is it too low down? Yeah, it needs a bit of tickling around the place, but it's good to go for the time being, I think. Let's get this other bottle in. Right. Take that out a bit. Okay, so how does that look like? What does it look like for a second? Not a million miles away from the truth. There's still a bit of something I need to do on that bottle neck. I think it's possibly might have to come down slightly. Let's have a quick peep. Oh, that's not, repeat, not what I wanted to do, but never mind. Maybe I should have done what I was going to do, which was just leave it and come back to it in a sec. Okay. Yeah, I kind of feel the negative space isn't quite as it should be there. So that's something basic and elementary, which I need to just do. I think the cap is too low down, in actual fact. It's my excuse. I'm just going to tickle the bottom of that up. Extend the neck. A tad more. Also, I mean, if it's ever so slightly too thick, it'll look too short. So we'll come back to this, I think. Started to be turning into a challenge. Okay, so where's this other bottle going? Well, we seem to feel, or at least I do anyway, the edge is here. So we can pop that in. That's an easy call. And the bottom we can stick in easily as well. So let's see what that, because there's a slight angle to that, I think, as well. Let's just make sure it's not just my head being too high. Okay, so I'm going to bring this down. And using the brush handle, using the knitting needle, it's straighter. I can feel, I feel it's about there. And it's coming out here. It's actually lower than the other side, or is it just an illusion? Ever so slightly lower. It's a nice straight line. It's the wrong angle. Let's stick that in. So just lifting out what I don't want. Yeah, you can begin to see it's kind of taking shape now. Let's just take that line away. Dip into the solvent, onto the paper towel, just take the surplus off and then we can remove that. Tidy up the image. Just lift this slightly. Okay. Notice I try really hard not to do curves with a straight line. Sorry, curves with a curved line. I always do curves with a straight line. It's easier to see the truth. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. So let's see where the top of this bottle is here in relationships to others. So like I said, guys, if you've got any queries or questions or you want to ask something, please do fire away. You're in no way interrupting what I'm doing. It's nice to hear your comments and views. Okay. Trying to see whether that is. Let's put it in and adjust it if I need to. Kind of see it's around about there. I just need to get this bit more pigment on this brush, I think. Okay. So we've made a mark. It's a bit of a wide mark. Let's make it a little bit thinner. So what do I mean by that? Let me just explore something with you. I put a bit of something on the brush here. It doesn't matter. I can take it off afterwards. Say, for example, see there's a shadow here. So let's ignore the shadow from it. Let's say I'm drawing in the edge of this. If I do something like this, where are we? It's fine. It's a little bit thick. So I would actually make that thinner and tune the edge in so that it's a very fine edge. Now, what I wouldn't do is therefore I wouldn't do this because that's no good for man or beast. You just don't know where within this thick mark your line could be. It could be on the edge, it could be in the middle, it could be on this edge. So it's far better to have a very thin line rather than a very thick line. So when you are mapping something out, please bear that in mind. Don't just go for too thick a line. Let's just get this off. Just put a bit of solvent on the brush and you can see that just comes off. Now this, I almost started this with an imprimatura stain and decided at the last minute not to, just to map out instead. But it still comes off, obviously, because an imprimatura stain would, especially something like this, would have ultramarine blue in it and raw umber. And as they're both transparent colours or semi-transparent colours for raw umber, it comes off quite easily. They're not high stainers. So let's have another look. I'm going to put the top of the cap of this bottle in now. It's just slightly below this. So assuming assumption, always a bad thing. Assuming that's kind of correct, then this should just be slightly below it. So if it's there, I can do it here. Here we go, look at that. It was probably a bit heavier than I anticipated, but never mind. One thing you should never do is never add black to make your blue darker, because black's opaque. And even the ivory black, which I think ivory black is semi-opaque. But if I'm wrong on that, then forgive. But I think it is. So yeah, it is semi-opaque. So it's still opaque, which means you're not going to see through it. Let's have a look at that and see where we are. Yeah, I wouldn't like to live on the difference of right or wrong on that. So we'll say it's true. I'm going to. I don't normally do this, but my students are probably going to come to class. Are probably not going to forgive me for this one or let me forget it. But I'm just going to raise the center of that up slightly. Right, this bit. Look at the negative space. Bless it. I could put a line in to kind of see if I feel correct with it. Let's use the force. Yeah, well, okay. Let's have a quick look at that. Let's see if I can. I think it needs a bottom to it. So let's just have a quick look at the bottom. Again, coming down to the level of the lens. It's going to make it slightly lower. And let's see where we are with it. I'm kind of tempted just to pop it in. On the basis that I'll see if it's wrong, which means it's then giving me a guide. See if I agree with that starting place. Okay. I think it looks too wide in that sense, so I'm going to bring this line in. Oh, that's nice and clear. Sometimes the brush has a mind of its own. I blame the brush. And let's just pop that through, changing the shape of it. You can see what I mean by a thin line. That's all I want. I don't want any thick line. And my main interest there is the negative space, the bit which is this. Let's remove these top lines a second. So a little bit of solvent, and let's just get rid of that. The question is, does that look? For me, it still looks a little bit wide on that side. So I'm bringing it in a little bit more, knowing full well if it's wrong, I can push it back out. Okay, so with that in mind, the width has got to be, in my opinion, something like about that. Maybe. No, neither. one of these days I'm going to put a line in, it's going to be perfect. But that day shall not be today. So, okay, we've got a bit of constructing to do, so let's put a line across here. And let's just see what we can do. Let's see where the straight line, straight edge stops and the curve begins. So getting down to the level of the lens, I think it's about kind of here-ish. So straight lines. Oops. Mess up the still life. And let's just connect the lines up to see if that's true. Not expecting it to be, so I won't be disappointed if it isn't. I always expect there's going to be some changes that's going to need to be made. Oh gosh, yeah. No. Let's just bring this down. Yeah, that's just not the way it looks. So let's bring this further in. You really see the importance of getting this shape correct with thin lines first before you do anything else. It really is, you don't want to get a colour until you get this stage right. Unless, of course, you're doing something abstract. Okay, I think that's too, yeah, it's oscillating, which means it's waving at me. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit and mimic the edge. I think I had that too high. Let's bring this and see what that looks like. It's always nice to remind yourself that there's a wonderful painting by Caravaggio in the National Gallery in Trafalgar Square. And he's moved a foot about, I think it's about 4 or 5 inches from one of his studies. So if Caravaggio can move a foot 4 or 5 inches, I kind of feel okay about moving something a little bit like that. Yeah, there's something going on here. Let's figure it out. So again, calibrating the height. I think this is too wide. That's my feel. It's only a little bit, but it does feel too wide. And that also oscillates. I think the curve is more. Should stop talking, really. It hinders what I see. Okay, that's interesting. It tells another 1,000 stories, so we'll bring this over and we'll bring that down as well. Put a bit of blue on. Bring that down. Adjust the shape. beauty of using solvent when you're drawing out is it dries a lot quicker. So you don't normally mess up an edge once you've got it in. And you're not losing a lot of paint either, using a little bit. Yeah, I think you need to come in and just take all that back out a little. Gosh. Okay, we'll fiddle with that in a minute. So, that's too straight now. It's crazy, isn't it? A millimetre makes such a difference. I'll fiddle with that in a sec. Okay, so that tells me I think this, so a quick look, I think this needs to go ever so slightly higher in the middle. And I think I'm going to now check the width of that bottle to see if I think it might be ever so slightly too wide. Let's just calibrate where I'm standing. Go with the width. Yes, I think so. Yep, ever so slight, but it is there. I think it's probably about here-ish. Again with the brush. We'll straighten out that and remove the edge. Yeah, that looks instantly better. Bleed that out. And pop that in. Okay, how does that look? Let's have a look at the screen. I'm certainly happier with the width of the bottle against the hole. And we do link for time on this, so we are good. 40 minutes, gosh. I think looking at that on the screen, this could do with slightly reducing in width, which means it's looking a little bit short. Whereas now, just take a fraction off, Maybe I shouldn't have taken a fraction off on the right, but we'll see. Makes it look taller. Do you remember your proportion means height against width? So if something's looking too short, make it thinner. It'll make it look taller. Okay. Let's have a quick glance over other stuff. Some cold tea. Yeah, for me, the bottle in the center, the neck, is still not quite the way I want it. So the cap still looks a little bit wide against everything. So let's take that line out on the top. Let's get this out. If I leave it too long, it'll dry in there. Imagine that oil paint drying quick. So here we go. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Let's get that out a bit more. It doesn't matter if it's not going to remove itself, because obviously we're going to be painting it. This is just drawing it out. Drawing out with paint. So you can see there's something not quite right in this area. It just feels this is too short. I know I stuck it in, but I'm going to stick it out again now. Let's remove that line, if we can. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So what's going on here? Cap still too wide, maybe? Or does it all need to go slightly higher? Let's have a quick look. I don't like taking it higher, because then it draws into question everything else which we've done in the past. But let's have a quick look. Just going to take that mark off. Just put in. Okay. So just having a look at this now, and I think I'm just going to take this slightly, ever so slightly higher there, and I just felt it was a little small against that area. Still feels a bit small against that area, so I'm going to push this out a little bit. Come in with this brush. You notice these changes are literally millimeters. They're nothing huge. As they are yet. Not yet they are. So let's just have a look at that. Yeah, I think that's a tad better. Which means this, I think I'm going to do it and just live with it. So I'm going to bring this slightly higher. hopefully I'm not going to go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Let's have a quick look. Because I just need to raise the bottom up to increase the neck length, I feel. Push that out a bit. And straighten this up. So we're definitely making some small line changes now. And would never want to do this at the beginning of the painting. For sure, I want to do it at the end of the painting. Let's have a quick look. Okay. Can always have a strong look at this afterwards and correct anything which we need to correct at the painting stage. But that's a bit, I'd much rather do it at this stage if possible. Picking a bit of stain up and just checking. Just adding some dark. And I'm going to wheel it around with this. If you can hear that in the background, that's a Chinook helicopter going over. Bless it. Yeah, the mic's picking it up. Okay, so happy-esque with one side. Let's just get this popped in. Just popping the colour in. And I'm going to use the brush to push out to thin that. See what we come up with. Push out a bit more. So I'm almost tempted just to say, you know, well, I'll look at this and deal with it later. Don't want to spend any more time on it if we can. Sometimes it can just chase you around the garden path. Okay. Bring that slightly further out, and then we'll push it. So fundamentally, I think there's our bottle. Oh, that does come down a bit here. Yeah. Okay. So now we're at this stage. That's kind of looking wrong. Let's just have this look. Take that a minute. Okay, well, I'll fiddle with that later, I think, because it's creeping up. I didn't want it to creep up. Okay, so let's look at now adding some dark. So the raw umber and the French ultramarine blue mixed together will go pretty much a black, as you can see there. Bit of solvent, because I don't want it to go thick. Still a stain I want to use, but I'm going to be putting in, that looks like it could come up slightly. So we put this in as a stain, very thin, not thick paint. We're not painting yet. Just mask this in. And look at putting some of the light and dark values in. See if we can sharpen up some of this. You can see what I'm doing. It's literally just putting a bit of a value in there, not a paint. It's almost like just a very thin stain going in. We really are just drawing in paint. We're not painting yet. Okay. Now we've got a dark shadow across there, which I think would help. So let's put this in. Now, because it's still fundamentally a stain, it's quite easy to adjust. Okay. This edge back down here is a highlight that comes up. What I want you to consider now as we do this, it's literally just what is light you put in as light, what is dark you put in as dark. Now that sounds a bit like an oversimplification, but if you did that, it would in actual fact resemble precisely what you're painting and drawing without you actually knowing what it is that you're painting or drawing. When I'm doing a painting, frequently I lose myself in the image and I don't even know what it is that I'm painting. All I'm focusing on is the light and dark values, the colours, the shapes. It really is true when I'm in the forest painting. Just getting that kind of in the right place. What we also we're doing now is that we're actually beginning to map out the light and dark shapes. How are we doing for time? So quick peek. Yep, 20 minutes, that's cool. So let's look at some of the other values. You can probably hear this is almost like scratching it in. There is a value there, but it's not what I would call dark. It's a mass, and you've got that highlight coming across. Now, if we take this little tiny brush and we just use it to dig into this value, it'll lighten it up slightly. And look at this shape in here. Again, it's not a highlight, it has a value. Let's get another brush now, and not that one. Yeah, I can do. Just want to put this highlight in. So whereas earlier I said I almost considered doing this as an imprimatur and decided not to, I'm now kind of pushing it towards an imprimatur study by adding the darks. Let's put some value in here. Could go darker. So like I said, I don't want to put a dollop of paint on, but there we do this. Kept putting in, just put it in rough, as I say. We can complicate the shape in later. Kind of feel it needs to come down slightly. And again, a darker value. We don't really need to do this, but I just think it's fun. It's nice to have a good drawing to go by and paint. It also familiarizes yourself with the painting. You're getting to grips with the shapes, the reflections, the lights and darks. You're familiarizing yourself with the image that you're going to be painting. And that's kind of fun. Like I said, there's no rush to put the colour on. I think if you're painting and you're looking at the clock, you're doing a 9 to 5, you're X number of hours. Let's say you got 10 hours to make a painting, then obviously you don't want to be spending too much on each stage. But if you're learning, well, it doesn't matter if you take 10 hours or 50. It matters that you enjoy it. And so that's why I'm saying it's nice that this stage I really enjoy, because it's a way of getting in and just having some fun. See how far you can push the image. We can lift the highlights. So let's see about putting this in. And you can already, it takes on a different kind of value, maybe. Atmosphere. Look, you could even say. All right, let's carry on. So I'm going to smooth this out with the soft brush. So it's a relatively even value. I think we've got a bit too much terps on there. If you've got terps on a brush, it will just carry on lifting right back to bare canvas, so we don't really want too much of that. Let's just add a bit more value. The value, I mean tonal value, dark and light. So this is dark, a dark area, so we call it a value. If it's a light area, we'll still call it a value. It is a tonal value, so therefore it could be light or dark. If we were to get all the correct values in all the correct places, we'd have a really correct painting or drawing. But it sounds easy. But that's the idea. Let's see where this reflection is. So it's about-ish here. Let's start with this. And comes up at an angle because of the distortion. Is that in the true place? Is there no one there? It's this bit of the painting process I really enjoy. In theory, the hard work has been done. I say theory because it looks likely. I do feel I'm going to have to come back in and alter some of these areas. But that's fine. I'm going to take this and put a mass across. It's slightly blue, so add a bit more of the raw umber, and that'll take it down to more neutral. Just want to put that across like this. I'm not going to put any detailing on that at this stage. Just want it to look a nice, neat mass. Right, so there's a value which is in here. Let's put some stain on. This can only help make the glass bottle look a bit more like a glass bottle. There is a reflection there, which that's fine, we can lift. And I think I'm just going to make that slightly smaller. All of the reflections along this neck we can lift quite easily, so long as we don't leave it too long. All right, that reflection needs adjustment, so let's do that now. Let's come back and see where we are. Nice curve pushing in here, and the angle is not quite flat. There's a nice little reflection there coming in, and we got one on the neck. And here. I think I need to use a slightly different brush on that one, but never mind. Persevere. Almost put a bit more stain in, he says, with no stain on. think it's a bit, there's adjustment on that one. So here we're really just kind of colouring it in or beginning to. It's the fun stage. So we are flatter. And just gonna touch this across. Yeah, okay, we'll come back. A bit more value in here. There's a highlight. When I mean a highlight, it's just slightly, it's a reflection of something. Just there. This brush will smooth out a lot. It says swapping brushes. Let's get back into this a minute. Okay, we've got a dark line there, so we need to put it in. Let's have a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue and stick it in. It's around about here-ish. There, I think, coming down a bit further over. Bit further over still. Let's recharge the brush. It's also going off at an angle, which I really didn't want it to do. Never mind. Oh, a bit of blue. If you're too brown, add a bit of blue. If you're too blue, add a bit of brown. Now, right on the edge of that. And this brush will, actually, first this brush to lift off where I've overpainted the highlights. Okay, so a little bit of terps and run this down. For those of you who are new to this type of painting, just try to relax into it. Don't make anything your precious. I would recommend, if you're going to be doing this, and have a look at the video and then have a go, but don't have a go with one canvas, have a go with two. Less stressful. And if you bring one painting up and it looks really, really good, you're probably going to feel, well, I don't want to mess it up. So if you have another painting on the go of the same study, you will feel less precious about it and have a go at improving what you've done. So that's kind of the advice I'd strongly give. Never I would give any strong advice, but I mean, it's just try to ease the pressure by doing more than one painting. So much easier that way. So this highlight is a bit too highlighty, so I'm going to get a bit of value on the end of this, and I'm just going to run it up and down here. And we just knocked that back a bit. This here, I'm still not 100% happy with that edge, but yeah, we'll run with it for the now. Can you see what I mean by if you matched your lights and darks so they're all correct, the shapes, the values, you'd have an amazing painting. I mean, I've totally forgotten that these bottles are blue. You don't, you know, you can just, it could be yellow. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you're capturing, well, the key thing is make sure you're having fun, because if you're not having fun, then I mean, that's the most important thing. But if you relax into it, if you're happy with it, then you'll get a better result. So don't stress. Anything which makes it easier for you to do something is good, especially when you're learning. Oh, hello. That stopped. Oh, that's a nice one. So if you do something like that, obviously it's not right, but don't worry about it. It's happened. No big deal. Okay, so we're going to get this brush and we're just going to run across the top. Tiny bit of solvent on it just to clean that edge up. I'm going to switch brushes to a stronger edge. You can see this one is a bit stronger. And that's going to give us, it's going to come off easy now. He says, glad it did. Okay, now we've got that back some. Just pick up some value and pop it back in. Yeah, it's still a lot lighter than it needs to be, but hey diddly-do, will be okay. Let's just look at this in here. Ow. Going to just lift this tiny reflection. Okay. It's a very small canvas, this. It's quite quite sure how big it is in actual fact. I think it's something like, I'll be guessing if I said anything, right? 5 to 7, so it's probably about 9 by 9 inch by 6 inch, maybe 9 by 7, something like that. It's quite small, and that's why I'm using a small brush, because it's quite fiddly. Tend not to use small brushes when I'm painting. I tend to use a big brush because I don't like going to detail too soon. And let's have a quick look, see what time it is. Oh, just past 7 o'clock. Okay, well, few seconds. I just wanted to get to this bit in here. Put a bit of value in there. And generally speaking, get a bit of value in here. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this evening. It's been a bit of fun to do something like this. I'm just popping some value in. I'm going to get a little bit of solvent on this just to help it flow. And then we'll call it a night. And next week we'll start putting some colours on. I'm thinking this might take actually three streams. We'll have a look. Make no decisions until we cross that bridge. But it would help the exploring the glazing aspect of what we do. Right. Just move this value along here, slightly push some in on the base. Let's just define that a little bit more than it is. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening's stream. And like I said, if you do have a go, please do. But don't just do one painting. Do a couple. Okay, so we're kind of almost there with it. Just sort of darken that area down for a bit of definition. And I think I might fiddle with that for a bit longer, but you get the gist. So let's put these brushes down. Well, I hope you've really enjoyed that. I know I did. But you can see it's a nice sketch. It's a good start. And we now have an opportunity to adjust this, tweak it, make it even better. And then we know where to put the colours, which is the important part, which is the reason why we do this. So have a super evening and what's left of it. And I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Do like the video if you can, or the channel. And if you've not yet subscribed, please do. It really does help us push up the old YouTube scale. Other than that, I shall wish you a lovely evening and a great week, and I'll see you next week. Night for now. Bye all.